cookies.
'Twas in an old New England kitchen where a warm wood fire burned bright, sat good old Farmer Ketchum and his wife one Christmas night. The wind outside was wailing, a weird and mournful sound, and the fleecy drifts of the fallen snow lay deep upon the ground. But what cared Farmer Ketchum for the tumult out of doors? For he had foddered the cattle and done the other chores, and snug in his chimney corner in his easy chair he sat, silently smoking his old clay pipe and petting the purring cat. And in a dingy corner a tall clock ticked away. It looked like a farmhouse kitchen fast falling to decay. And above the smoky fireplace a rusty musket hung, and scores of strings of apples from the smoky ceiling swung. And by his side his wife sat, rocking to and fro, humming a hymn and dreaming a dream of long ago. The knitting fell from the woman's hands. The old man turned about, and taking his pipe from his mouth, slowly knocked the ashes out. The old man said in a solemn air, "'Tis Christmas, but the stockings don't hang by the fireplace there." The women sighed and then replied in what sounded like a moan, "The years have come and the years have gone, and we are still alone. I was just thinking of a Christmas long ago, when the windows were frosted over and the ground was white with snow, and you and I sat in the firelight's cheerful gleam, when our hearts were full of promise, and the future but a dream. And home from Benson's store came frolicking Brother John, and looking through the window he could see what was going on, and how the neighbors tattled and they talked all over town, until you and I got married and quietly settled down." She said, "I was rummaging through the cobwebs in the attic the other day, and I saw little broken toys in a corner stowed away. I saw little worn-out boots lying in a heap. They used to lie on the kitchen floor when the boys were fast asleep. I saw a little trundle bed, and a cradle long lay by, and leaning against the chimney there, I couldn't help but cry, 'cause the faces of my children come back to me once more. I could almost hear the patter of their feet upon the floor. I could see their little faces, hear the little prayers they said, when they used to gather round me 'when it was time to go to bed.'" Now the oldest of our living was a bright and handsome boy. He was his father's only hope and his mother's only joy. I used to play with his little hands and I'd kiss his little feet. And I wondered if a babe were ever born more innocent or sweet. But of all the earthly trials and all the earthly cares, the thankless neglect of a wayward child is the hardest of all to bear. We sent him away to college, he did uncommonly well. But then he went off to the city and he married his city belle. Now she was a woman with only high notions in her head. She couldn't knit a stocking or bake a loaf of bread. She just played the piano with her lily white hands, and she talked in a foreign lingo that no one could understand. But of all of the beautiful children that came to our fireside, there's none we loved more dearly than a little girl that died. Her eyes are blue like the hue of the summer air, and like strands of golden sunlight were her strands of silken hair. Her skin was as white as the drifts of the newly fallen snow. But too much of a little angel were she to live in this world below. How snug in her little coffin she laid in her last repose, as pure as a fairest lily, as fair as a tuberose. Ah, how well do I remember the sadness of that day, for my heart was well nigh broken when they carried her away. The youngest of our living was hard to understand. He didn't take to learning no more than a fish to land. Somehow we couldn't keep him quite under our control, But I know he had a tender heart and a good and noble soul. And may a mother's prayer go with him, wherever he may be. And in God's good time, please send him home to me. There came a knock on the outside door. The old man gave a start. The woman rose from the rocking chair with a flutter at her heart. The door sprang widely open and banged against the wall. And into that farmhouse kitchen strode a stranger, dark and tall. The woman looked at his bearded face a moment in surprise, but she saw a quiver about his lips, saw a glad look in his eyes. She raised her arms to heaven and she gave a cry of joy, and she laid her white head lovingly on the breast of her wayward boy. Now, the old New England kitchen never was so bright as it was for Farmer Ketchum and his wife that Christmas night.